Hey guys, Zach here, coming at you with a, honestly, pretty special video. So you all know that Luigi's Mansion is my favorite game of all time, but today, I'm not going to be talking about it. Well, I'll probably put in my 2 cents every now and again, but today's video, we have a very special guest. Someone who's appeared on my channel before, and it definitely won't be the last time because it's going to be a 3-part video series, which I'll explain in a little bit. So, special guest of mine, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, CC Media here. ZakPak, thank you so much for having me on this video, and I'm looking forward to talking all things Luigi's Mansion.
Anytime, man, anytime. It's very fun to have you. Obviously, CC Media and I have done live streams in the past. We've done 2 of them, actually, and we want to talk about a 3rd, maybe in August, but we'll see. Or maybe even in June after E3, but that's a discussion that him and I will have privately. So yes, we're going to be talking about Luigi's Mansion. So here's how this video series is going to work, because yes, it's a video series. In this video, we're going to be talking about the original Luigi's Mansion. And in the next video we're going to talk about Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, or Luigi's Mansion 2, depending on where in the world you are. And then, in another video, which will probably come out maybe like right before E3, we will be talking about Luigi's Mansion 3. And we're also going to be doing a video on his channel. So make sure to go and subscribe to him, guys. He's really awesome. He does amazing content, high quality, just great YouTuber. And like I said, my pretty face, this face, is going to be on his channel. So without any further ado, let's talk about the original Luigi's Mansion for the Nintendo GameCube, and I guess now 3DS.
ZakPak, he's always there for you. ZakPak, only on YouTube. ZakPak, what will he do next? ZakPak, let's find out, 'cause it's on with the show.
So, let me ask you this, CC Media. What was your first experience with Luigi's Mansion?
So the first time I played the game, I was probably around 7 or 8. I was pretty young. And it was actually at a hotel, because for some reason the hotel room my family was staying at had a GameCube in it. And so they had a couple games for it, and so I looked through the boxes, and I saw, the first one I saw that had a Mario character on it, I was just like, okay, I'll just play this, because I was a big Mario fan at the time, and that game happened to be Luigi's Mansion. But what I did not know was that this game was completely different from most Mario games. It was very different, but I had no idea because I was a little kid, and so I just saw Luigi on the box, and I was like, sure, let's give this a shot. So I put the game into the GameCube, and right away I could tell this was different. But I played it because I was like, well, it's got a Mario character in it. Surely it's going to get brighter at some point, but it never did. And I was honestly terrified by it as a child. Now, obviously, looking back, that's my favorite thing about Luigi's Mansion, how dark and different it is from other Nintendo and specifically Mario games. But at the time, I was completely terrified by the game. And it wasn't until the part where the ghosts on the wall, or the paintings on the wall start talking to you, that's when I turned the game off. Like, I think it was at that moment I was just like, nope, this is too scary for me. And so my first impression of the game when I first played it was very terrified, and I didn't pick up the game again until really just last year. Now, that's not saying I was scared of the game up until just last year, but I wanted to wait until I had enough time to really, invest a lot of time into it. And last year I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a shot again, and I loved it. I love Luigi's Mansion, the first one, so much. But yeah, that's always a funny story to me, how just the first time I played it, I was completely terrified, and I did not play it again for years. But looking back now, I love the game, and all the reasons I was scared of it first are reasons now why I like the game. So it's funny how that worked out.
Sure. It was just last year when you weren't scared of the game. Yeah, we'll go with that, yeah. I mean, really, Luigi's Mansion is a top-tier horror game, man. I mean, Resident Evil 7, what's that? Silent Hill 2? That's baby stuff. Luigi's Mansion, that's where the horror is at. But no, in all seriousness, guys, I love hearing these first experience stories, especially since, Chris from CC Media is a little bit younger than I am. But we probably played it around the same age, I'm presuming. But either way, it's like, just hearing these stories about, how game scared you or terrified you, because with me, I wasn't terrified to the extent that CC Media was, but I was definitely creeped out. There was definitely something eerie about the game. I think that's the best word to use, eerie. And yeah, it definitely, it really, I don't know, that's what captivated me. It didn't scare me away like with CC Media, but it actually captivated me, and that's where my love for the game grew. Because it was different, because it was eerie, because it was a little creepy. And yeah, that's, and the fact with what you said about the portrait on the wall, that was definitely when I realized I love this game, because it was so different. So I think the next question is kind of obvious, but nevertheless, what's your favorite part about the original Luigi's Mansion?
My favorite thing about Luigi's Mansion, I think it comes down to two categories. First, I know you've probably heard it a million times, but it's the tone and the atmosphere, and I won't go on too long about it, because like I said, everyone loves this about the first Luigi's Mansion, because that's what's so great about it. But the tone and the atmosphere are amazing, and a lot of it has to do with, I think, the pacing and the game's overall structure, but also the visual design. I think they chose this very kind of gritty approach to the textures and the way the shapes are built and structured. Like, take Dark Moon, for example, which gave things a kind of wacky, goofy, like polished, almost plasticky design, which I wasn't a huge fan of, which I'll talk more about in our Dark Moon video. But in Luigi's Mansion, they chose, it looked like a real mansion, yet something about it also still felt like it could somehow be in the Mario universe. So I thought the visual design is one of the things I love so much about the Luigi's Mansion. I think they nailed that perfectly. So that's number one. And then number two is the portrait ghosts. Those were my favorite things about that game as I was playing it. Although I might have just said the tone and the atmosphere is my favorite thing. There are a lot of favorite things about Luigi's Mansion, but I also love the portrait ghost, because every time I would come across a new one, it was this exciting new event, because each one is so different, and there's such a variety in terms of how they act, what their personalities are like, of course how they look, and how you kind of go about the puzzle-solving elements of trying to interact with them and that sort of thing, and I thought that was really cool. So the portrait ghost and the atmosphere are my two favorite things about Luigi's Mansion.
Couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I probably would have butchered it somehow. But yeah, like those, I think, like, because a lot of people talk about Luigi's Mansion 3, which we will talk about in, like I said, our Luigi's Mansion 3 video, but so many people want those two things in particular back. Even if the rest of the game had Dark Moon elements to them, right? Even if the ghosts weren't as, creepy as the first game, and I mean the common ghosts. And, even if the mansion's design is a little bit different, the atmosphere and the portrait ghost are the main thing that the Luigi's Mansion 1 fans want back. Above everything else, really. But yeah, I highly agree with you. And, even with, some of the goofy nature of some of the ghosts, like, for example, Mr. Lugs, the glutton in the kitchen, is just scarfing down food, he still was creepy. As funny as it was just seeing this really big, tubby ghost shoving down rice down his throat, it was still creepy. The noises that he made, the fireballs that he spat, so that leaned into the atmosphere as well, like you said, as well as the realistic mansion, with all the dust picking up whenever you walked. It definitely led to a great experience. So the last question for this video that I have for you is, what was your least favorite part about Luigi's Mansion? Or overall, what did you not like about the original Luigi's Mansion?
It's funny because I can't really think of anything I didn't like about the first Luigi's Mansion. The only thing that really comes to mind for me, honestly, as something I quote-unquote didn't like about it, was just that it left me wanting more. And in hindsight, I realized that's something that I actually really like about the game, that it did leave me wanting more. But the game was very contained in a sense, you're kept in this one mansion this whole time, which I think is what added to the atmosphere, because there's no feeling of like, oh, I can leave anytime. No, you're there, you need to solve this mystery, and I love that. But the game is relatively short, and so it did leave me wanting more when I played it the first time. Like I said, in hindsight, I think this is actually really good, because I think it makes it seem like more of a special, short and sweet experience, as opposed to this big, grand, crazy adventure. I honestly kind of like that about the game. I like that it's short, but it did leave me wanting more. And I also think that's because there's so much that isn't explained in the game too, in terms of the backstory, the history. What's the story of all these ghosts? I'm sure maybe there is a story, maybe in the manual, or maybe someone's uncovered it online, but I don't know about it, and there's a lot that isn't explained in the game specifically. And so I think I love just kind of the whole world that Luigi's Mansion established, and there's so much they could do to build off of it, that they sort of did do with Dark Moon, which I thought was cool. But I just think the potential there, and just the desire to want more from this whole universe that they established in the first Luigi's Mansion game, is something I didn't like about the first game, just because I knew how much potential there was, but it's something I like about it because that's what makes it so special. Hopefully that made sense.
It did make sense. It actually really did make sense. And as for the story elements that you mentioned, they kind of are explained. I don't really know about the manual of the game, but I know that when the 3DS version of Luigi's Mansion came out, Nintendo had this whole archive thing on their website, or on the Luigi's Mansion 3DS website, that talked about EGAD and how he made Gooigi. and like how he explained something about the common ghost from the original game, and it was actually really, really cool. So I suggest you look at that. And the main reason I really like this is stuck in my head about this backstory about Luigi's Mansion, the 3DS game, is because Nintendo tweeted about it, and I literally saw the first word, Professor Egad, when Nintendo tweeted it a couple weeks ago, and I was like, Professor Egad, Luigi's Mansion 3, they're finally tweeting about it, but nope. It was about the 3DS remake. But yeah, that's all the questions I got for you today, man.
Thanks so much for having me on, Zach. I had a really good time, and I'm looking forward to our next video. You guys can check out my channel, CC Media. Hopefully it's in the description below, maybe. I do all sorts of unique Nintendo-related content. As you can probably tell, it's all about Nintendo here, and I love it so much. So check out my channel if you guys are interested. Thanks again for having me on, Zach, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, man, and I'll definitely try to remember to put it in the description. Sometimes I'm bad at that, but I'll definitely put your link in the description. But even if I forget, if you go to my channel, I have like a featured YouTubers tab on the side, and he is on there. I put CC Media on there a little while ago, so definitely check out his channel. Like I said, we're going to be doing a video on his channel that I'm going to be in as well, so if you like my pretty face, go over to his channel. It'll be really, really fun, and stay tuned. Probably next week, I'll have a video up with us talking about Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Yay!